3 shots, 4 par, I just do 2. 1 putt, par 4, birdie, woohoo. New driver, info, replace, M2, par 5, fairway, what you fin do? Think I'll try to get on into, start right, good line, good view, it drew, shoot and make Gavin, 2 thumbs that's up high.
Bryce, you're gonna love this. I asked Kyle the question. I said, do you want us to like feed a couple questions? Usually, like Bryce, you know how it is. We'll send like an email before and a couple topics that we can like definitely touch on. Kyle said, no, let's just roll.
Just run with it. I mean, like, because I get how that is. Like, I used to try to do my own podcast before in other realms and stuff. And when you have questions, there can absolutely be a flow. But then at the same time, you're like, all right, well, I also have to like try to squeeze this question in and all. And it just kind of gets like funky sometimes.
Yeah. I know exactly how we've left a few questions out just because it got flowing and it was kind of relevant. And then, but we just like it because like if sometimes you get stuck, you always have something to go to.
Yeah, that's true too. How many would you say out of the 140 shows that you've done, like what percentage is just kind of like let it flow, let it do your thing?
Oh, 92, 94.
Yeah, now definitely. Yeah, Bryce knows 92 or 94. So those are the 92 or 94 that Bryce is. No, I would say like off the hop, like we talked about this a little bit jumping in. I can even leave this part in for anybody listening. So as we got going, it was like, you know, definitely a little bit more structured and you're kind of learning just like your golf game or whatever it is. Right. So, but now that we have a better understanding of it, like Bryce and I can talk to anybody, especially if it's about golf, right? It's like, it's easy.
And in the beginning, you're really figuring out like what your brand feels like and looks like. So you're trying to trying to structure it. And then you're like, okay, now I'm 40, 50 episodes in and this is our brand. This is what we're doing.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mac, but I'm pretty sure I helped Mac out a bit with my sense of it because I joined him a little later. I think he did like 20 or so, 15 episodes without me before I joined on with him. And I just go with the flow. I'm decent with people. I know how to talk, so I never did notes, and he's always been a note guy, which is great. But sometimes I would notice he would get stuck on the notes, and I was like, "No, just go, keep going." I feel like he's gotten so much better at that, and he doesn't really look at his notes anymore. I feel
well, too. There's also times too, like when we'll reach out to somebody, they might want us to like touch on a subject, right?
Or not touch on a subject.
Or not, right? So like if
you bring the live guys on, you don't want to be talking about Saudis.
Yeah, I guess so, right? So I don't know. There's always things to kind of go through, and you know, you get better as you go, right? And
positives and negatives to both ways of thinking.
Yeah, well, I think like we said, Bryce, we had like the perfect balance. Like we usually go through 4 or 5 pointers. We do like a little intro, kind of like we're doing right now, and then you know we kind of get into like a little bit about the guests and stuff like that. So it's like, it's really good we get good feedback from our listeners too, that they like kind of starting off an episode like that. It gives like a really good, you know, kind of a quick,
just organic
synopsis of what the episode's going to be like too. Right. So, and I don't know, we've gotten to some pretty weird places at times, Kyle. We get into some weird spots talking about things.
I gotta go back and listen to all the episodes. I gotta find out these weird
things.
Last
week it revolved around blue balls, so it was
I did see the title. It was
that was a good episode though. It was funny.
Really good, really funny, and for a great cause. So if anybody's still looking, go back and check that one out.
But also, I like when it gets to weird places because it really shows people's personalities and kind of what they enjoy and what they're interested in. So I think I personally like that. I'm sure people listening enjoy that too. Connect better with the guests and stuff. So it's cool.
It's really funny when you say that because like some people are so afraid to be themselves because maybe they're into something that just you know, maybe they think other people aren't going to be into it. And even if they aren't, there's this like, I love when people are super passionate about whatever it may be. Like, what if they're big into like painting miniature figures or something, and it's just like I don't do that, but that's so cool that you have a passion for it.
Yeah, totally.
Like I love that for you.
Mac here for Manscaped, the best in men's grooming. We are back with a limited time offer on the Performance Package 4.0. If you're not watching this on YouTube or on Instagram or somewhere that we have this video posted, you should go look because I'm going to show you everything in each one of these lineups. The Performance Package 4.0 comes with the Crop Reviver, the Crop Preserver, the Weed Whacker for the nose. This thing would take down Eugene Levy, and the Lawnmower 4.0. We scroll down to the Platinum Package. It includes the Crop Preserver that we already talked about. You can't see it in the screen. Over there is a Crop Reviver, the body wash, shampoo, and conditioner, plus the deodorant, said Weed Whacker, said Lawnmower 4.0. And on top of that, you're going to get free boxers, my favorite pair of all 3 pairs that I own, my favorite toiletry bag of 2 toiletry bags that I own, free shipping, plus 20% off using the promo code OTSGolf over at manscaped.com or manscaped.ca. The best in men's grooming. Let's get to the back nine. We'll see you there. Mac here for BioSteel. We absolutely love this one on the pod. The hydration mix has been in our golf bags forever. The hydration mix has been designed in the most natural way possible to help you stay hydrated throughout your round of golf. Zero sugar formula is made from clean, quality ingredients and contains no artificial flavors and colors, added vitamins and minerals to help support overall good health, normal function of your golf swing, and your immune system. Simply mix it into some water, and you can enjoy it through all 18 holes. Clean, healthy hydration. Zero sugar, natural health product, no artificial flavors or colors, no artificial sweeteners, no preservatives, caffeine-free, NSF certified for sport. Biosteel.ca, biosteel.com. Use the promo code SCREWS30 for 30% off your order. SCREWS30 for 30% off your order. Stay hydrated, my friends.
Yeah. And I think that's been a big drive to our podcast, especially with how we work with a lot of small company or small people. Like, they just come on and tell everyone what they enjoy and what they do, and I think people appreciate that, and we appreciate that. That's
easy for Bryce to say, talking from all the way up there, 6'3" or whatever it is, but small people, come on now. Come on now. I'm like,
don't tell anybody I'm 6'2".
Yeah, I'm just one of these short guys now. God damn.
Mac twisting my words.
Yeah, no, but
I'm a nice guy, I swear.
No, our niche has been really cool. It's been a lot of fun. It's been like really cool to connect with the people that we have, and like today I just spent over an hour on the phone with a putter builder that we met 100 episodes ago, getting a custom putter built. Like, it was cool, man. It's just like,
that was really cool. Well, that's why I reached out to you guys, because I was like, the whole premise of this, like, building a community for the golfers, like by the golfers kind of thing, because there is this, this community that isn't always talking to each other, and so having that platform to do that is really, really fun, really cool.
Wait, hold on a second. Cal, I hope you don't mind. I'm writing that down. A community for the golfers, by the golfers. Because we've always had a community for, with FORE, for all golfers, or whatever it was, right? I like that. And our friends over at Left Behind they've got a slogan just like that. So for lefties by lefties. So it's something along those lines, which is really cool. So, all right. So we're here with Kyle from Feel Under Par, correct?
Yes, that is right.
Can you kind of give us an intro of who you are, what Feel Under Par is?
Yeah, absolutely.
What you're kind of doing on the course, away from the course.
Yeah. So I'm a golf performance coach. So really what that means is I help people with everything outside of making swing changes. So I'm not technically certified in any way to help somebody say, like, hey, you need to be swinging this way, or you need to come inside out and all that stuff, and how to do all that mechanically. I help people with overcoming pressure when it comes to, being in tournaments, and building processes with them, and really helping them get out of their own way. I think just like a lot of people, when they kind of find their niche in something, it's usually because they themselves struggled with, whatever it may be that they're in. And, for myself, I was a range hound. I would just go out there and just try to plug away. I'd be watching YouTube videos on, like, do the, eliminate your slice, watching like Rick Shields or something, and like trying to go do all those things that I'm watching. And no knock on them. I think everything's great, but it's just so general to the population that, like, you find a tip, you think it works for a couple rounds or a round or whatever, and then there's just no process to, like, keep it going. So maybe you fall off of it again, and you kind of come back into your own old behaviors, because that's just what happens. And so that's what happened with me, and I was like, if I can figure out how to get better at golf without, making swing changes, I would love to help other people with that. And that's really where it, started, where it came from. I've just been trying to, build a base of, like you guys, like a community of people who are coming into the sense of like the mental game and stuff outside of just your swing is just as important to your game and helping you, be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I think that's. Go ahead, Mac.
what's your background, Kyle? Like what aside from being a golfer, like we were trying to
Yeah.
kind of learn the game, like the mental aspect of it, what brought you to the mental space in golf?
It's a really good question. I would say that there's no true background that I have in it, other than uh, I, for the last like decade or so, have been in the learning and development space when it comes to, more of a corporate life. Like I was working um, in big corporations doing helping leaderships through coaching for them and stuff like that. So really understanding how to help people unlock their potential in those realms. And I was like, if I can do that, why don't I bring that into my passion for golf? And so that's where I started melding these like two passions of mine and helping people in a sense that, something I'd rather do every day than helping, leaders get to their next promotion. And nothing wrong with that. It's just that wasn't where my passions, were anymore.
So are you getting into more like I know I've kind of dealt with it a little bit and kind of learned throughout my game how to kind of be more relaxed and
Yeah.
kind of focus on my mental game more. I'll just give an example for me. Like pre-shot routine was a big one for me.
Yeah.
I didn't care about it. I didn't do anything, but then I started to do it and committed to it on every shot. Is that kind of the stuff you're talking about, where you're gonna help
That's
people out with stuff like that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I would say uh, what you just said about like the pre-shot routine, didn't really have one, didn't really care about one. I would even go a step further to be like, you had one unintentionally and it just wasn't a good one. You know what I mean? Like whatever you did before your shot, maybe it wasn't helping. And so kind of getting people into that rhythm of like, all right, let's be intentional with what we want to do before we take the shot, before we hit this ball, before we walk up to the ball, because then we start making these preconceived notions about, all right, my expectation is that it goes here or wherever. And then we, build up that tension in our body, and the tension is what causes those slices and the tops and the chunks and all this stuff, and we just don't realize it because we're not being aware in that moment. And so yeah, a lot of it is, I would say, a majority of the people that I work with, one of the first things we always work through is building a foundational process. And what I have created is like a 3-step process to creating a process, if you will. It's the going through the think, feel, and do phases. So like before you step up to the ball, think about what you want your target to be. And a lot of people are already really good at that, because that's what we have a problem with, is overthinking things. So it's like, all right, think about the wind and your lie and all that. So where the trouble is, and what your typical shot patterns are. Because if you slice it, then you're probably going to want to aim, if you're righty, aim more left, because even if you miss, it'll still come into a safe spot. Once you pick your target, feel out what that shot you want to take feels like, and then just go up to the ball and execute, and no more thoughts once you cross this like invisible barrier kind of thing. And so that's really like the first thing that I do work with people on, is building a process. Yeah.
So do you think
Which
just
is
repetition, sorry Bryce, do you think repetition builds that, Kyle, that like, because I think the biggest disconnect is, like you said, from the think, and like you can have the feel and everything like that.
Yeah.
A lot of us are okay with that. But then as soon as we get to that do part, like I know myself, Bryce are kind of golfers in our level. Bryce are still fresh off of 66, so
Whoa.
it's so. But you know what I mean. So it's is that repetition helping golfers get over that disconnect, or is there a mental barrier that you're working on with golfers to kind of break through that?
That's a great question. So it's both. It is that repetition of doing the reps, getting it in, just continually doing it, just like anything else. If you work out your body, you're going to keep putting in the same kind of reps on, whatever you're trying to build. You're just trying to build those muscles in your brain, those memory muscles. So you have to put in the repetition. But like you said, there's also barriers. Sometimes people have certain what we call limiting beliefs, which I'm sure is a term you have heard before, and it's just really the beliefs that we build, starting from like, as silly as it sounds, when we're kids. Things that like maybe when you first started golfing, it was oh, I can't hit X certain shot, or when I'm over water I always tend to do XYZ. And it's like, if
You've
you
already
always
talked yourself out of this
Yeah.
shot.
exactly that's
Yeah.
exactly right. So if you're already talking yourself out of it, that's absolutely a barrier that we would have to work through. And like coaching with me is I help kind of dig into where does that barrier come out, figuring out what that barrier is, because
Or
sometimes
why.
yeah, or
Yep.
why, because sometimes we don't even know that we have that barrier. So through the talking, through the coaching, figuring out, oh, it's when you're behind the trees and you're like, I can't, I don't want to pitch it out because once I do that I lose a stroke. And so you have these like limiting beliefs, and it's, oh, okay, so that's what we have to figure out, because even if you do a process all the time, there's always going to be that little like voice in your head that says you can't do it. And so working through what that looks like.
What about the
Yeah,
what about the guys
I'm just
who
gonna add on to this. Hold on, man.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just love that you're passionate about this and like that you're in this space. Because I think people underestimate the mental game so
Oh
much, and
yeah.
like especially amateurs, even myself. I mean, I'm not out there grinding every single day. I really
Yeah.
could care less what I shoot. It doesn't mean anything to me in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
But when I, like Max said, when I shot that 66, I really focused on like telling myself in my head what kind of shot I want to hit, where I want to leave it, and
Yeah.
kind of thing. And it's crazy that
It
when you do
really
every
is.
single shot, it makes that much of a difference. It's
And it
just
sounds, and I know Mac had a question or he was going to say something, but I was just to riff on that really quick. It sounds easy to do it before every shot, but if you're even 65 to, 85 shots, 90 shots, it's not an easy thing to do every single time. It takes that discipline, that commitment, and that's half the battle. Is like, okay, I know I should do this before every shot, but like, can you? Can you get out of your own head to do it before every shot?
yeah. Then you have a couple beers and you're with your buddies and you just
Exactly.
don't
Yeah.
think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you
That's
just forget
where
about it,
my
right?
where I go wrong.
Exactly.
Well,
It
and I
goes
feel
off the
like
rails.
guys at like the top of the like you see guys playing in pro-ams and stuff like that, and they're hitting it to like 3 feet, and it's
Yeah.
just like I saw like a video of JT the other day, just like getting out there and just like it's perfect, but it's like all of those repetitions that it's just there, it's just always there,
He
right?
also hit
Yeah.
like 14 over at the US Open, so it's
Yeah.
like these guys make mistakes, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like
yeah, it can
they're
happen.
not perfect.
I was gonna say, Kyle, what about the guys who are the opposite, who like have an undeniable belief that they can make these shots that they have no business making, but it happens on a very unbelievably low frequency. And I'm pointing at myself here if you're listening.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
there's a very small percentage or window, or I, I like, I can remember Bryce and I playing and like him talking about like this gap in the trees. And I was like, man, there's no
Like, I can
gap.
make
I
it.
don't see
I
the
got
gap.
this.
I
I
don't
can
see.
have everybody
Yeah.
I play with tell you that story.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
like, do you find that you get into it with a lot of those types of golfers? Like, do you have, or is it mainly the opposite, I guess? Like, are you seeing more of kind of what we already talked about?
I think because there's sort of a like a threshold of the kind of people who might follow me or work with me, that there is that like, oh, I want to work on my mental game. You're coming in with that thought. It's not like you fall into it. So
Yeah.
most of the time it's people who are willing to say like, oh yeah, I need help with XYZ. But I have worked with those kinds of people before, and I think it's everybody. So to be fair, like I do it, everybody does it that way. You have a gap and you're like, I don't even see the gap, I'm going for it. And it does work. Sometimes that it works, and that's why we continue to do it, because it builds on that like um that confidence of like, oh, I can do it next time because I did it that one time out of the 25 times I've tried it.
My
Yeah.
hands up for anyone not watching.
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
the other thing about that too is like if you do see a gap and you think if you're confident enough or you think you can hit that gap, I mean, hit the shot. Like
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like that's the thing too, is there's what I talk about with the people I work with is having fun shots too. So it's like if you're, let's say a very typical range is like 150 yards from the pin or something. You're 150 out, but let's say you're behind something that's in the way, and it's like you think that golf society would tell you you have to hit this certain shot because you're this distance away and the pin is here or whatever it is. And so you're now creating pressure on yourself to hit this shot, and it's like, all right, we'll just go for the fun shot instead, because you're going to be looser. It'll be like, it'll break up that kind of monotony in your head of like, oh, I have to do this and this and this, and just being like, you know what, instead of hitting an 8-iron here, like maybe I hit like a stinger 5 or something like that. Like let me just try to pull that off. And And like you said, if you have the confidence in doing it, if you can go out there, then you're going to be looser when you're trying to take that shot because you're not so worried about it.
That's where I find. I mean, I know Decade is an amazing way to look at the game, but that's why I
Yeah.
feel like people who just are to the T with that sort of format, it's almost you're losing shots because like I know guys will still green light will kind of put it to the side, but I like guys that are kind of half and half that will use it, but also like if they're feeling a shot and they say, hey, I can put this to 3 feet,
Yeah.
they just kind of throw the Decade or whatever they're using out the window and go at that pin. So
Yeah.
Well, we kind of had
I've
that.
I've never used Decade, but I'm very curious about it because I actually preach it. Like I'm always like you should use it because it's a good way to course
Yeah.
course manage.
Yeah.
I've actually never used it myself.
Well, it's like the Scott Fawcett program or whatever. So
Yeah.
we've said this a couple times. We really got to try and get Scott Fawcett on.
Yeah.
He's a genius.
Yeah, I know
I'm
he-
so fascinated by it.
I think he
Yeah.
was in the good like the 63 qualifiers or whatever, like the first
he-
yeah.
He's been
so-
playing a lot lately because I think he's trying to get back into it, and he's been hitting good scores. Like he's like shooting in
Yep.
the 60s. I'm like, my God, man, if I could at that age, what I think he's close to 50 or something, like hitting scores like that. Like
He also did one of the Fixing Frankie episodes with Foreplay.
Yes,
Oh, did
that's
he?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. He
So
was helping him with Decade stuff,
Yeah.
like how to actually use it and whatnot.
I think Decade's like a very good approach for not recreational golfers. Maybe I guess but like
Well, I think you bring up a good point. Is like I think it needs to be more approachable. Like
Yeah.
Decade feels like a very
well, because like
like-
I think too
Pro
even-
like mentality.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
what do you do from like the right rough when you've only hit your drive 210 yards and you've still and
Yeah.
now you have 208 in or something like that into a par 4. It's like so the Decade's out the window, like what so
Right.
but I think like you get to golfers that are single digit handicaps, and I think it can be incredibly beneficial to try
Yeah.
to bring yourself to more of like a scratch level. And then I think even guys that are like, we have a lot of discussions with like PGA Tour Canada pros and like NCAA golfers and stuff that are using
A
it.
lot of them use it.
I think
Oh,
a lot
really?
of them
That's cool.
a lot of them are using it, but what I picked up from Cam Kellett that we were talking to, he's still an amateur. He just won I should look that up. I'll come back to that. But he yeah, so sorry Cam, but he was telling us about how they follow it, but he has his own game plan too, right?
It's like a hybrid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they're always going to know. They get to a point where they know when they can like attack a pin or whatever it may be, or when they can hit to a different area, or if they're playing like a practice round, there's more availability somewhere else, or
Yeah.
even hitting slightly. Like he mentioned at Oshawa, hitting slightly off the green in one spot on two different occasions, like where Decade might tell you to hit it to the middle of the green and two putt, but actually like if it's a front right pin, you're better to be 2 feet off the green on the front right, kind of pitching into a slope, right? So there's a couple things that you can work in and out of your game with that, where I think that a very like a golfer in the like infancy of like learning the game would just struggle immensely with that. It's like when
and it kind of takes away creativity, like you're saying. I think
Yeah,
if you're so strict on it, it's really good for helping you build that skill of course management, but it's almost like that feel versus real argument where that's the real, and it's data, so it doesn't account for human it doesn't account for human feelings. So if someone's like, I know I can get to this pin because I'm on it today, I'm on my A game, and it's like, all right, well, then attack the pin, like
right.
do what feels right to you, because that's numbers aren't going to tell you how to feel as a person.
I think it's the same too, like sticking those Arcos tabs in the bottom of your clubs and stuff when you're not sure if you're going to shoot 125 or 104. Like there's obviously a ton of variance in your game.
Bottom of the club or top of the club?
Top of the club.
Yeah, how do you?
It's the bottom. It's the bottom
I would
if it
say
goes.
top, but if you put it in your bag, it's technically
It's
the
the
bottom.
bottom.
So I don't know.
Good
Yeah,
point.
either way,
I
right?
don't
So,
know.
National Amateur Invitational Champ. Congratulations, Cam Kellett. He's a
Oh,
past
there we
guest a
go.
few weeks ago. So,
Yeah.
probably he's playing in a ton of pro events and stuff like that. I imagine he'll go pro very soon. Eastern Michigan guy. So we've had
The
a handful of Eastern
whole
Michigan guys.
getting to pro stuff confuses the heck out of me. I didn't grow up in any PGA program or any type of mini tours or anything like that. Like I've always been like a recreational golfer who has
Yeah.
just been passionate about the game.
Yeah.
So I don't understand all the levels. And there's like I sometimes I'll follow guys or over the weekend or whatever in a Corn Ferry Tour or even like college kids playing whatever they're playing and they're shooting in the 60s and I'm like, why aren't they pro? Like
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
Well, the crazy thing is all you do is just sign a piece of paper. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Really?
Essentially, yeah.
Well,
like I could do it right now.
Like it was
No
explained.
way.
It was explained to us that it was actually quite simple. You can just enter into a pro event. You either sign up to make a potential of up here it's like $1,001, or you don't. And
Or you sign up as an amateur and you just you don't win money.
you can make up to like
Yeah.
you can make up to $1,000 now or something like that,
Yeah.
right? So like,
Oh yeah, that's
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's wild.
yeah, it's big
Yeah.
money. Unless you're Sam Bennett, now he's got like T-Mobile and
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
other sponsor trying to get on Sam.
I know
Bennett's.
a lot of people, like everybody that I've talked to, is very divided on Sam Bennett because he's got this like confidence and swagger
Right.
that also comes off as like a cockiness to
I
some
love it.
people.
I
Yeah,
love
and what I was gonna say is like I love his confidence because he can. That's how he plays well. Like if he can believe in himself, I think a lot of
Big
people
time.
what they're missing is that belief in themselves. Like really, what is separating you from Sam Bennett? And it's like, sure, maybe he definitely has certain skills, but those things can be overcome by other mental game beliefs. Not to say that you can just believe your way into being a pro, but it definitely helps.
Yeah, well, I remember he said Augusta's easier than one of the courses he's
Yeah,
already
yeah,
played or
yeah.
something, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of guys will think like, why
He's a
would you
kid,
say that? But then he's like, he finishes what T11 or whatever,
Yeah.
T15 or whatever. Like he proved that he can be out there and play that
Right.
course. Like I don't,
Yeah.
I like him.
Really good
I'm a
point.
fan.
I like him. I hope he does well. I hope he makes some splash, some waves.
I think he will. He's got a pretty wild swing, that's for
I
sure.
love his swing.
It's
he just
so
gets through
so nice,
Well,
but
is it? I think I heard. I don't know if I've heard this wrong or not, but he is like self-taught or something. Like he didn't.
Oh, I'm not sure. I
Yeah.
haven't heard anything, but he swings like Joaquim Nyman, or Joaquim Neiman. Like he gets
Oh,
real
okay.
low with the shoulders and gets those hips through. He's got. I like
Yeah.
his.
yeah, it's really impressive. It's like you wonder how long that can last, but it's
I know.
it's here. It's
There's a
super
lot of
impressive.
torsion
Right?
in that body.
So,
Yeah.
Kyle, I wanted to go back to the think, feel, and do. So we were talking about, we kind of
Yeah.
went into the idea of it and then skipping parts, whether or not some of us do that. But when you're working with somebody and they come to you and they want to, start creating, say, a pre-shot routine, let's focus in on that first. What are some of the things that you're talking about with the player that you kind of instruct them to start bringing into their game, or that you would encourage that they would bring into their game?
Yeah. So I would say the first couple sessions are always the hardest is the wrong word, but definitely the most like emotional, if you will, because you have to like dig into like what really is the problem. People come in thinking like, yeah, I can't get off the tee, or when I'm over water, this happens, and it's like, all right, sure, that's like the outcome, that's what you're seeing, but what is it really like? So there's a lot of deep diving into what they're thinking about. I have like an assessment that they go through around before they even come to coaching to kind of figure out, oh, over the last X number of holes, I was thinking about, I have like 5 or 6 things that could be popping into their head, and they're like, oh, now that you're taking down metrics, I'm seeing that I've been thinking about my playing partner a lot, like worrying what they're thinking of me. And it's like, okay, if that's something that's popping up a lot, why are we worrying about our playing partners? So like the process stuff comes in that first or second session, but it's really more about figuring out where are these stress triggers happening, where, how is the process going to help? Because like I said before, like a process can't just be a band-aid to these things, because those thoughts, you can't control your thoughts, so they're always going to pop up. But how do we avoid the big pink elephant kind of thing? Is you can acknowledge it and move around it. And then I forgot what you even asked me about process.
Well,
so
it was kind of like the process of like creating a pre-shot
Yeah.
routine, but it sounds like it's almost like we're building from before we even get to the
Ground,
course. Like we're
yeah,
like,
yeah. I never go in thinking like this is your problem. It comes. You have to come from a place of curiosity. Like every single player is different. You know, they all come with different experiences, different backgrounds, different fears, different whatever, and they have to be open to being coachable, meaning like you have to be open to being uncomfortable and like discussing things that maybe you don't want to talk about.
Yeah, and
You
new
know?
ideas and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
it gets real, you know?
So, in your experience so far, what typically will bring a player to you when a player reaches out to you? Is
Yeah.
it a connection that you're seeing with a lot of players? Like, is there something that's happened in their game or something that is happening? Is there kind of like a correlation that you're starting to see a pattern?
Not, I don't have a real true pattern yet. It's honestly something I'm still trying to work out is like how to get the right people, like how to get to the right audience, because I think a lot of people, I really would love to help the recreational golfer, like people who have a 20-25 handicap down to let's just say a 10 or something, that like sweet spot of almost all golfers. And the problem is with people in that range is they're not seeing the value of mental game coaching. I mean, think about yourselves when you were younger or something. Like you were, even myself, I was spending money on new clubs and you know, subscriptions to like I don't know, those like series of videos that would be like, this is how you can fix your slice in however many days, and it's like
Right.
$100 or something. It's like you're spending hundreds of dollars on these things that are shiny, like you're really hoping that this one thing is the fix. And it's about coming to grips with like, all right, there's probably not one true little fix. It's about, a discipline change, a mindset change. And for a few $100s, you can do that too. It's just really coming to that idea. But I've been working with, some like affiliate marketing to try to pull in that kind of audience and uh, kind of touch base with them that way. I don't have a true pipeline of like, oh, college players or whatever it may be. Still figuring out my market for that. Yeah.
Well, I
I
think
have a quick question
yeah, go
going
ahead,
back to
Bryce.
kind of just I know we touched on pre-shot routine a lot, and
Hmm.
I know it's huge because it was huge for me. And I know everyone's different, so you might not be able to
Yeah.
answer this question. So feel
No.
free to kind of say you can't answer it. But are there any good tips for people listening, guys and girls, sorry, people listening that can use like good specific tips before hitting their golf ball, like when they put the tee in the ground, good little things to do or think about before they hit the golf shot?
Yeah. That's a really good question. And I would say, so trying to think what's the best way I can kind of sum up process for
Well, I can.
everybody.
How about I can give you mine, and maybe you can kind of tell me what's good and bad.
Sure.
Maybe. So
Yeah. 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 I'd love
I'll
that.
put the tee in the ground. I line up to the ball, make sure my stance is kind of level and not all funky. I'm not standing in a divot or whatever.
Hmm.
I'll back up behind the ball. I will talk myself through the shot. This isn't every shot, which is bad, but most shots. I'll talk
Yeah.
myself through my shot. I will line my club up with a little piece of grass or something in front of my ball for my aim point. I'll step up, take one practice swing, and then hit the ball.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
so good. And so when you said you talk yourself through your shot, because I want to dig into that for a second, do you verbalize it out loud or is it like in your head?
Sometimes, and when I do, I usually perfect my shot.
Dude, I
Um,
was gonna say I've been tinkering with like verbalization,
it's
and
crazy.
I think like there's usually no magic trick to things, but I think verbalization's magic, man.
It's crazy. I don't know what it is. Like I will. I mean, I'm a pretty solid ball striker, and I can
Yeah.
play pretty well. But when I don't think I've ever missed a shot when I was like talking to my buddy, like, "Hey, I'm gonna do this," and telling him exactly what I'm gonna do, and it does
And
exactly what I want.
and
It's
I was
crazy.
to say, what stops you from doing it before every shot? Like talking out.
Laziness and just not caring enough, I think.
Yeah.
Not, not, I don't know. Yeah, I'm out there to have fun. I don't really care too much.
Yeah. No,
But
it's a really good point, a really good insight, because I think that's kind of the key for a lot of people is like, oh, do I care enough to do,
mhm.
whether it's verbalization or anything that might
Yeah,
be helpful for your game, because it's like a lot of people's escape to just go golf, and it's like,
yeah,
do I care that much to, do something different? But back to your point about the helpful tips, what you said is honestly a really good process. Is so my process and what I try to help people through is kind of a version of what you just said. Is I try to keep people. I know everybody's process is different in different aspects, but the way I kind of teach people or coach people is keep them away from the ball as long as possible so that until they're ready to hit. Because as soon as you walk up to the ball, like there shouldn't be thoughts racing through your head. And so if you can stay off the ball as long as you can to kind of go through your process, get your feels down and all that, when you walk up, and that's why we call it the do phase, is like as soon as you get up to the ball, you're reacting. I've heard it before and I love it, and that's why I preach it now. Is there's all these other ball sports like baseball, hockey, whatever it is, where everything is reactionary. Like that thing is coming at you, you have to react. You're not allowed to. You don't get time to think, and we have this burden of thought. Yeah, we have this burden of thought in golf where you technically can stand over the ball as long as you want. Granted, the ranger may come up to you, but like you can just stand over it and think as much as you want. And all that thought, and I've said this before, is it creates tension, and tension is the biggest killer in our game because it's something that happens and we're not aware of it. Like I always liken it to when I go to the dentist. I hate going to the dentist, and so I'll sit in that chair and they'll be working on my teeth, and suddenly I realize like it must have been 15 minutes. Like I'm white knuckling in that chair, like I'm so tight. And then as soon as I realize it, like I take a deep breath and I just kind of relax. And that's just like golf. Like people won't realize they're standing over the ball and they're starting to white knuckle because they're thinking like, oh, there's water, there's trees, like I can't hit it there. And if they don't realize they're thinking like that, they're just starting to get all tight, and then they're not breathing and they're taking their shot and then they top it or whatever the bad outcome will be. So yeah, the process tip is just stay back behind the ball, find your target, thinking about it. I always tell people if there's too much to think about where it's like, oh, distance, wind, elevation, all that stuff. If you don't want to think about all that stuff, think about what I say is distance, danger, and drop. Think about your distance. So if you're 150 yards out, you're 150 yards out, your danger. So where's the danger? And then your drop. Where do you want the ball to land? So like, just think about those things. Get your feel down, whether that's I tend to tell people not to do a full practice swing just so you can actually slow down and feel kind of slowly like what you want during that shot or not. Sometimes like for me, my feel is just visualizing the ball. I don't swing or anything. I just kind of see my shot flying through the air. I'm like, oh yeah, I want it to do that. And that's when I'll verbalize too. And then as soon as I feel prepared, and what I tell people, as soon as you feel prepared, just walk up and just react to the ball. Just do the thing that you just talked yourself into doing. And it goes right most of the time. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. Sometimes you're gonna have bad shots.
Well, yeah, it's like there's so little room for error too on the golf club, right? So like I'm very familiar with the hosel right now. For some reason. I don't know why. Yeah. I like my dispersion. It was funny. I hit one the other day, and then I said to one of my playing partners, Sean, I said, you think I can do this again? And I intentionally tried to do it, and I just picked it right off the hosel. Did you do it
when you intentionally tried to do it?
Yeah, and it was like in the direct same dispersion point as the other one. It was really impressive because I
was gonna say that's super impressive because when you tell somebody just go do it again, like you can't.
There's no way that I could have done that a third time. There's absolutely no way. But it's too like I like the idea of staying away from the ball for as long as you can, because I think of some of my like my good buddies who are trying to break 100 or, think of like Trent, like breaking 90 and stuff like that. Right. And you can tell like in a couple spots, like his last video, he was like going.
Dude, did you watch that? The one over
the ball for like I think he said like 42 seconds or something.
Dude, when he was standing there, I was like, he has to back off. This is not gonna go well.
Yeah. And then of course he just kind of topped it right into.
Well, that's another cool point there. Like, don't be afraid to back off. Like, if you're not feeling great, like just back off. Like,
I tell people that all the time. It's like because that's such a good point, because that's also where. Like I was saying before, some people's thoughts go to their playing partners or whatever it is, people behind them. And it's like, okay, so are you worried to back off because of what they're going to think about you backing off? And it's like, who cares? Who cares? Just reset. Yeah.
Well, I think of too, when we were talking about the verbal, like almost like the verbal visualization or like when you're watching, the PGA Tour or, any professional golf on TV, we're now getting the insight of the caddy and the
Yes.
players exchange, right? And
Yeah,
so
I
they're
love that.
Great.
they're
It's
talking
great.
about it back and forth. Like that's one of my favorite parts is watching that
I wish they
interaction,
did it
right?
more.
I know.
And so, you know, or now they're kind of sticking an earbud in some of the players' ears, and you might get a little bit more rather than the shot information. But I love sitting there, like listening to like JT and Bones go through like the pre-shot routine and like what the shot they're trying to hit, what club they're trying to hit, the yardage, kind of like the danger, like you talked about, the drop, where they want to put it, and they go through all of those same things, right? So
I love when they have 2 club options and they're kind of both talking through the good and the bad of each option.
So that's
good.
I'm gonna interrupt you there just for a second because that's great. Is what I actually tell people is, you know, don't choose your club before you start your process. Choosing your club should happen after your think phase, because if you go in again 150 yards and you're like, all right, that's a, you know, a comfortable 8-iron for me. Now you've limited yourself to just thinking about shots with your 8-iron instead of like, all right, what if I took my 8 and my 7 and then like, fuck it, let me just bring my 4 hybrid and just say like, okay, what could a shot be with this thing? And it's like,
I'm guilty
just
of
giving
doing that
yourself
for sure
options.
with wedges.
Oh
like,
yeah,
like
Remember it screwed me on my bogey, Mac? Like
Yeah.
with my 60s, it is same thing.
I walk up and I already have the wedge shot in mind that I want to hit.
Yeah.
And then I'm a pretty creative player, and I can usually make up when things are going wrong around the green. So then I'm not thinking of like, okay, should I be like hitting like a lower pitch or something like this? I'm just like, I'll just make do with this club because my bag is 30 yards away and there's no chance I'm going back to get it, right? So which is, you know, we try and keep up speed. And so one of the things that I've been thinking of throughout this is like pace of play, and all those things are such big things in golf. But if you walk, like it's different if you're in a cart, but I'm thinking of Matt Fitzpatrick continues to pop into my mind because you can tell that like somebody like Matt Fitzpatrick, he's the fastest player probably on tour right now. All of the work that they're doing is while they're walking up, approaching the ball, and then we don't really see while they're waiting for a shot. Typically in his group, like sorry Fitz, but he's typically the first guy to hit. He's not a super long hitter, so they're obviously creating like a habitual routine for him in his game that he knows that he's hitting first, and they can't obviously go there, stand there and kind of go through all of their information. So as they're walking up, they're collecting their data, they're, you know, getting to the point, they get their number, and then he literally like already has it in mind, walks up, hits the ball, no practice swing, nothing. And I noticed that another continuation of that question for you, Kyle, is a lot of putters are starting to get rid of a practice stroke while they're putting. Like, are players are getting rid of that? Is that something that you're noticing more? I've
actually never heard that. I don't know. I have no feelings towards it, like any certain way.
Yeah. So a couple years ago when DJ was super hot, he started doing it, and he did his like routine where he would tuck his arm in, or I'm a lefty, so a righty, but he wouldn't. He started getting rid of a practice stroke. I know quite a few golfers did. So I think it's just one of those things too. I think less goes wrong if you're, you know, maybe.
Yeah, but I think you could also look at it the other way, because I know I take one practice stroke and I try to visualize the weight I want to hit the golf ball and how to roll, and that's kind of my visual when I'm putting. So I don't know. That's a cool.
Me
cool
too.
thought.
No, me too.
Kind of adds to the being less time over the ball.
Putting is such a hard part of the game because it's just like a different game altogether. Like for me, I literally imagine I'm rolling the ball like with my hand. Like I try to think about like what that would feel like.
Right.
And I'm everybody has comments when I'm putting. I look at the hole the whole time if I'm more than 6 feet away. I think Spieth did that for a while or something, but I've noticed if I'm looking at the hole, I just don't think about my putter mechanics so much. I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna, if I'm tossing a baseball, I'm not looking at the baseball while I'm throwing it. So I try to think of it in that respect of like, I'm looking where I want it to go, essentially.
I've heard that like argument on putting, and I think it's very interesting. I've tried it.
It's weird to get used to for sure.
Yeah. I find like when it's a longer putter, so if we're talking like putts, right, if we're talking like 15, 20, 30 feet or more, I typically spend more time over the ball with the length of it and, trying 1 or 2 practice strokes, like you said, Bryce, to make sure that like distance is correct.
Where speed's really more important than
exactly, right? Line. And then one of the things I do too on kind of medium to longer length putts, especially with some movement, is I typically trace it from the whole back with my eyes,
Mhm.
and then once I get back to the ball, that's when I start my stroke.
I do that too. I mean,
Yeah.
listen to Mac more than me. He's a way better rock roller than I am, but I do that
So
as well.
to actually tell me more about that. What do you mean you trace
So,
back from the hole?
so like let's take a 25-foot putt, and
Yeah.
the course that I play with, there's a ton of movement, right? So typically I set up my alignment, whatever it is, like I mark my ball in a certain way, set up my alignment based on where my initial break point was. I check it to make sure that when I'm going to, like, you kind of figure out your speed, where you want, like, say, the climax of the break to be. There's a bunch of things that go in. So you just set it on your alignment where you want to start the ball, and then you take like your practice swings, so your practice stroke, to get an idea of how hard you want to hit it, I guess. And then I'm typically looking at the pin, and then I'm bringing my eyes along the break back to the ball. Once I reach the ball, my putting stroke starts, and this all happens in like 3 seconds for me. Like, it doesn't take much time. I just am looking at the pin, bringing it back, and then I start my putting stroke.
And that helps you gauge what is the speed or where the break is.
I think for me, it's more of, say, the break.
Yeah, I do something very similar, but I look first at where I want the ball to enter the hole. So like if it's like a big swinger, the ball's not going to enter straight in front of you on the hole. It's going to enter the right side of the hole. So then I'll trace it from the right side of the hole, trace my line back.
Yeah, like in my mind, I have
interesting.
a right to left putt because I'm a lefty, so that's an easier putt for me typically. So that's kind of the same idea as, I'm looking at that part of the cup, and then I'm kind of tracing it back, and then I feel like I can typically start the ball on a better line that way. Whereas if you just are looking at your line on your putter, it might be off a little bit, whatever it is. But I am 100% a field putter too. So
me too.
Some other players might be more of like a technical putter, so like maybe they go really by the alignment on their ball or whatever it may be. But
like
I feel
Bryson, like I always think of Bryson, where he's got like goes like
he's hitting that one dimple.
Yeah, but how do you connect the depth then, right? Like, how do you connect the depth of the putt? Like, how do you connect?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know.
If you're not looking,
so when I line up my putt, you guys ever play like PGA 2K23 or anything like that? And how
Tiger
they have
Vision or whatever.
like with the dots that move and all that stuff. Yeah. Like I literally I always line up straight. Even if there's a break, I'll line up straight, and I'm like, okay, if I hit it straight, I imagine where that ball would land. And then I literally like shift my body so that the line would almost move with me, and that's how I line up putts.
That's a good way of thinking of it too. But like you said, everyone's different. They'll all have their own way.
Yeah, just I've never been able to like just mark my ball, look at the line that I've put or the line I want to start it on, and then be able to kind of gauge the distance. I would like it just doesn't speak to me in that sense. I have to like kind of trace it back. But if you still got a few minutes, Kyle, I wanted to ask you a little bit about nutrition. Is nutrition something that you've worked into your game? We've noticed that, like you mentioned Bryson, but something that we've kind of seen a lot more of in the last few years is like John Daly. One of my favorite golfers of all time, but there's not too many John Daly's out there anymore.
There's not.
Is it something that you're working with players on, or something that players have mentioned? Like I know I guess how Rory walking up 18 the other day grabbed like a protein bar on the way. Like it's definitely something that players are working on a lot more. And I think it goes into like fatigue, being able to like, use your mind properly. Something that you're kind of working into your routine with players at all?
Great question. It has not been a selling point of the coaching in any way for me. Maybe it should be, but it's something to think about. But I think I've always just taken it for granted because I've always been fairly healthy or nutritional in a sense, whatever, nutritionally minded, where there's almost like you're making me think now, because this is good stuff. I mean, it's such a good thing to like think about, not even just adding, but like to have a conversation on, because some
we
people
make better
like,
choices, right? Like when we're
exactly like your mind is set up to run better. You're giving it the right fuel. I will say I do have a piece in there about like prep, or like playing well starts before you get to your round, and that means like bringing water and like being hydrated and having having nutrition. So like a very small piece of my coaching touches that, but it's never been like a hallmark. But I would say it is worth talking about because it is very important.
Yeah, and if you want, you can go to biosteel.ca.com and use it.
There you go. Nice
Little plug.
Love
You got
it.
me, guys. You got me.
That was perfect. That was perfect. But
Great plug.
I should say though, one of my lowest rounds last year was without water and on about 45 minutes sleep, and we had some drinks the night before, so you never know though.
That's
like
wild.
It's
That's so weird you say that. One of my scramble tournaments I played in last year, or it would have been 2 years ago now. I was up watching the Open because it was the same week till like 4 in the morning, and it was like a 2-hour drive to the course because it was my boss's hometown. It's a couple hours away. We left that morning, so we left at like 5. I slept like an hour, and then at 2 hours in the car and played out of my mind. And I don't know why, but
I can probably guess it was because not like in these situations where you guys aren't getting enough sleep, it may have loosened you up more. Like you probably weren't thinking so much. You know,
even
like your
less
brain
thinking.
was just
you're just so far gone that there's absolutely no thinking happening.
I had
right?
so many drinks that day too, and I was just straight. Like I don't know.
You were just in the action brain. Like there was no analytical brain that day.
Well, I think that's like important too. Like I don't mean like to go out and just get blackout drunk and go play golf the next day.
That's definitely not sustainable.
Another John Daly thing that was sustainable for some, but not for a lot of us. But I think it is too. Like you got to find out whatever your thing is, whatever takes you kind of away from having that, at least for me, having that like mental breakdown on the course or like overthinking too many things. I don't, I'm like almost the other way. Like I'm so far gone the other way that I don't care if a ball goes OB. I don't like think about it or worry about it.
Definitely, it's extremes, one way or the other. It's not good,
Probably should do a pre-shot routine, but
Yeah, I was gonna add to that, Mac. And just go have fun. Like your score is irrelevant to mostly everyone except you. So like,
exactly.
Go out there and hit the ball and have fun and get mad at yourself sometimes, but overall, just go have a good time. Don't worry about what you're doing.
I've always been curious about that. Is like, why do we care so much? Like most of us aren't trying to play on a tour or anything, and it's like I don't know. Is our self-worth like wound up in these scores?
You always want to try to beat the game of golf, and you never will.
You never will. I had this conversation though earlier today with somebody about how, like, why is there so like golf in general? Like, there's so much like lying that goes on about scores and stuff like that.
Brings
like,
out the worst.
There's so much pride and the ego that goes into it, and then like I see it all the time because our course is a little bit shorter. Brycer's played at my course quite a bit, and it's a little bit shorter. It's only like 66 or something from the tips, and you get guys who'll go out and play the blues, but it's not like you have to be an elite golfer to be playing our back tees, and it's like it's punishing. And then we're 2.5 hours into our round and we're on like the 7th hole or something like that, and they got to move up. Like it's just not working, right? So it's kind of like such an ego driven sport for some, not for all, but it's one of those things where we see a lot of it in golf, and I don't really know why.
I think it's because we're so vulnerable in that game, because you're expecting so much of yourself, and then you're like letting yourself down, and like people are seeing your worst shots, and you're like, oh, I'm not really like that, and it's like
well, this goes back to, we had a conversation with Cam about this a few weeks ago, is where like how the pros think, and it's like they're gonna, or I think it was with Kevin. We had a conversation with Kevin Gordon. We said it's just crazy how the higher end players think. It's like get the ball in the fairway off the tee, get it on the green, and then 2-putt or 1-putt, and that's all. And like I think a lot of golfers think like that, but can't actually execute it. So they get frustrated, and they keep coming back for more because they think it's that easy, but it's really not. I know that happens with me all the time, but
it's such a simple game. I mean, you just put it get it off into the fairway, then put it up on the green and 2-putt. Like it's really not that hard.
Well, it's like I was talking to somebody about like my game and stuff, and I'm playing with a good friend of mine, Anthony, friend of the pod as well, and like he's an absolute stick. He's gonna go out and shoot 72, 72. We're playing 36, and it's just kind of how his game is. He just hits it 260 down the middle of the fairway onto the green, 1 or 2-putt, and like for me, I'm like, man, like my game is in shambles right now. I'm 30 yards right, 30 yards left, and then I'm 2 down the middle, and then I'm back to 30 yards right, 30 yards left. But it's like in each round of golf I play, no matter what, I'll hit 2 or 3 shots out of my mind that
you're just like,
that people
why I
like
keep coming
yeah
back.
that people
That-
remember.
the shot
So
that keeps you coming back.
Oh,
yeah.
then when I'm like, oh yeah, like I shot 81, they're like, what? I was like, yeah, like I was lost on holes 11 through 14, like, you know, just out of pocket every single shot or something like that. So I like really fell off there, right?
I think you say it great now, Mac, as you say you're not really chasing scores, you're just chasing that golf shot, you know.
Ooh, I like that.
That's it. That's it.
I
And
mean, there's always that one.
yeah, and kind of we're sort of at that point where that's what we're chasing, and we're encouraging a lot of people to do the same. When we're talking with pros or D1 golfers and stuff, or ladies that play in the Epson Tour, like we're just talking about people who just beat the pants off us. So it just like we're just listening at that point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But you know, when we're talking to friends and stuff like that, or you know, brands that we're starting to kind of make friendships with, that's the idea, right? Is to just chase a golf shot, hit a golf shot, have fun, and then you know, the score, like Bryce says, is completely irrelevant, and you just want to have a good time, or what are you doing out there, right? So
It's like you know, it's like 9 to 5s. Like it's an arbitrary number that came up with in like the early 1900s. It's like somebody was like, this is what par is. Now chase this for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong though. Like if you care and want to get better, by all means grind. I love it, but in all reality, your score doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Play fast. Play fast,
have
though.
Fun.
Yeah. Just play fast.
Suck faster. You know, just do it. Fast. I think you brought up a good point though of like you were out of pocket a few holes, whatever, and you still shot an 81. I think there's this misconception that everybody has is like you have to play your best game to play well, and it's whatever somebody's best game might look like. But you can have a couple doubles and some bogeys or whatever and still shoot like a 79. Like that's absolutely possible.
I've done it.
Yeah, I had 5 or 6 birdies last year, and I still shot. I don't know what the score was. It was a high 70s. I think it was a 78, right? So like, it can happen. Where I have a 30.
I've even had days where I hit that terribly, and somehow I still shot like 81 or 70.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought I was 95 today.
Yeah. Hate to say it, but I got an 81 with a 33 on the front. So that's that's a real new 9 for you.
Well,
so
I went from a 62 to a 92 in 4 rounds.
No way.
Yeah.
Or 66, or not 60, 66 to 92 in 4 rounds.
It can happen, right? It can happen.
That's my golf game.
That's some wild variance. Like that's some.
I mean, it's like 20 strokes.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. But I got to wrap it up here, Kyle. Though I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely.
Like I hope you had an hour for us, because we took just about every minute of it. But
I expected it to be an hour. So
it was fun, man. It was a really cool kind of flowing conversation, and as things go, like definitely if there's anything that we can help out with, or if you're looking to connect with any players or any feedback or anything, we'd love to kind of supply it in any way we can. But I think we got to spin it back as things develop and we get kind of deeper into it. I'm going to try and create a pre-shot routine. I'm going to tell myself starting tomorrow morning.
I learned that from Blaker, man, my brother. He told me to do it, and it's been working out. But I think I love episodes like this because I just think people who listen are so relatable to this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah,
just your everyday golfer who loves the game, wants to get better, but is also out there to have fun. It's just so relatable to them, and I think everyone likes that. So
yeah, absolutely. Mac, try verbalizing, try saying it out loud. I'm gonna hit my ball here. Even if it's like 1 or 2 shots, you'll be like, I don't know how I just painted that shot exactly how I said it. It's incredible.
So
it's crazy.
Tomorrow you'll hear from me quite a bit. I will not burn the edge of this cup. I will not burn the edge of this cup.
Exactly.
Because I am not somebody to leave a par putt or a birdie putt when I get them. Definitely birdie putt, but I'm not somebody to leave a putt short. So
never short.
My problem is though I singed the edge of the cup right now for some reason. I don't know.
Greg Yetman, my father, always says, never be afraid of the 6-foot comebacker.
Yeah. 6-foot
comebacker. Exactly.
Never.
Yeah. Well, hey, it can't go in unless it goes to the hole or past it, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, but this was really cool, man. Really appreciate it. Hopefully we can do this again sometime.
I was gonna say I'd love to come back on whenever you guys would have me. So just keep me in mind.
He's out in my ball in the course, so I tee up. I lose the ball and I re-up. I miss a fairway, I probably end up in the ocean or maybe the beach. And I'm on a par 5 and I'm finna go reach it. Second was blind, I ain't see it. Feel like it might be an albatross, worst case scenario.